Yeah, so we have to keep it up and see where we're going to go. We're going to land this aircraft.
We can't stop now.
Can't stop now.
For
Stop
sure.
us now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you. Everybody out to it.
Well, the struggle never really stops, you know.
I tell you, if we had a train accident in this town, it would be a problem trying to get people in jail quick.
That's why it was started, you know. Nuremberg was
Exactly.
started because of a train accident.
What would be our straight roads, JFK Park Avenue?
Yeah.
And they had to block Park Avenue off.
Park Avenue and then Oak Tree Road.
And what's other? And that's it?
That would be to JFK and then James Street.
So they would have to go Park Avenue,
Yeah.
Oak Tree Road, and then James Street.
James Street, yeah. And that would be a mess.
Firefighters
And then there's Overlook, which is up the hill in
on the
summer.
mountain.
And in the winter, that would be lovely. And you can't get up that hill during rush hour.
No.
And then there would be Somerset, west on Route 22, out to Somerville.
Oh, man.
Okay.
And Johnson Wood, you got to go
Robert
18.
Wood Johnson.
Robert Wood Johnson.
And Raleigh.
That's Inman Avenue over. Oh, forget about it.
Well, Inman Avenue was where the freight train crossed.
Right. So if you get caught in a freight train,
You're-
you sit there waiting and bleed it down.
Well,
Hopefully.
you know,
Make sure you're connected. Make sure you're protected. Make sure you listen to Harvest Radio, AM 1070, WKNB.
WKNB Sterling Plainfield, a service of Harvest Radio.
Here we go.
It's time now for the Town Talker with Reverend Zechariah A. Jackson. Reverend Jackson is founding pastor of the Church of What's Happening Now, located in Plainfield, New Jersey. And now, the Town Talker, Reverend Zechariah Jackson.
Oh, well, you know, it's so wonderful coming to you. I tell you, the weather looked like leaves are falling. I had a tree that fell on my block the other day. We had a soaker Saturday with all the rain and everything. I knew that tree was going to come down. I went to Olive Garden a few days before, and had got that spaghetti special that they got. I'm doing a shout out to Olive Garden. I think you pay like $14, eat all the spaghetti and meatballs you want. So I had some extra meatballs, and I was sitting there, and I said, you know, I had done a little exercise. I said, let me put a little carbo in my body. You know what I mean? I'm sitting there. Next thing I know, I hear something go. I said, uh-oh, here it go. That tree fell. Boom. Thank God it didn't take out the truck, but you know, God was with us, and the firemen and policemen came, and they sent sanitation guys later to take care of the tree. But I just tell you, the people in Plainfield, if you got some old trees, contact some of these people that cut these trees down. Maybe you can cut a deal or something, because I tell you, it's dangerous. You know, thank God no one was coming up the road that night, and they would have gotten a tree upside the head. But today we got two guests today. I'm happy to have Dottie Gutenberg.
Gutenkopf.
All right. And Joseph Managrano. Joseph Managrano wrote a book called Forever Brothers, and we're going to talk to him. But Dottie has something to say about the Democratic rally Saturday. Go ahead.
Well, yes, sir. The local Democratic Party is sponsoring a Stand for Change rally for Barack Obama and Frank Lautenberg and the Democratic candidates. This is this coming Saturday at 3 o'clock at the headquarters, which is at 311 East Front Street in Plainfield, and there's plenty of parking in the back. The lot is right off Roosevelt Avenue, across from Supremos.
Anything else you want to?
Well, the co-chairs of the Obama campaign here in this part of Union County are Plainfield Councilman Rashid Burning,
Okay.
and Planning Board member Charles Ecke. Charles has been an Obama fellow, and has gotten all kinds of intensive training on how to run a ground operation. And we are hopeful that the city of Plainfield will turn out and give 99% of its vote to Senator Obama in November.
Well, I'll tell you, Plainfield, you know, if you listen to my sermon Sunday, I yield my sermon for the actually outreach part of the church of what's happening now. We were at the Democratic Convention, you know, and we were talking to people on the floor, and I have more footage, probably in 2 weeks will be played. I yield next Sunday to the Haitian Pentecostal Church, so that'll be done mainly in French and Creole. So if you can, listen to it in another week and just hear me interviewing many people that was out there talking about Obama, those like him and those that didn't. So, you know, it's that's just how it is, you know. So we hope that everybody can take a moment out of their time Saturday and come to the rally, you know. 311 East Front Street, time 3 p.m. Will they have food there, Don?
Frankly, I don't know, but I would be surprised if they didn't.
Okay, well,
I don't know. I have no idea.
I think it's going to be a well-attended rally in Plainfield.
Well, I will tell you that Assemblyman Jerry Green, who chairs the Plainfield Democratic Committee, is very excited about it and looking forward.
Okay, well, hats off to Jerry Green for
absolutely
for putting this thing together. We're trying to get him on the talk show one day, and we will get back with him. And Rashid Burney, you can email Rashid.Burney at gmail.com, or you can call him at 908-803-7606. Stand for Change Rally. Hope! I was hollering, keep change alive. Okay. Now, today we're going to go to Joe Managrano. How you feeling, Joe?
I feel just great, and I want to thank you, Reverend Jackson, for having me on your show. And I'm really delighted to see all the good that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a pleasure, you know, Joe, to have you. And I've read the book and everything, and I want to get the audience to know, what is the Forever Brothers? What is the story about?
It's a story about the time and time and lives of 5 teenagers. The background is New York, Harlem, and the year is in the decade of 1950. It's 5 teenagers that are abandoned to the streets, and the time and the trial that they go through, and it's quite an emotional novel.
Well, you know, yes, I was captured by it. Why was it important to show the relationships the way you did? And
it's, you know, these characters are very complicated. If you read it and you mentioned about the flashbacks, and it goes back to early part of the century during Reconstruction, and then it ends up in Harlem and later on into Arizona into the later years. But it's the complexity of these personalities and what brought them together, and what evolved out of it. They were challenged every day. They were on the streets on their own, and the only thing that kept them surviving was this bond that they created between them. They became a family, and the only way they survived was being together and taking whatever opportunities they could to exist. Unfortunately, they made some mistakes, and the book talks about that in the trial, and the understanding that the jury had, the prosecutor and the defense. Very difficult time for them, but it's not an easy read. There's a great deal of emotion and
Sure. You have to follow it. Is that correct, Joe? You have to follow the book, to follow the characters to get a good understanding of the gist of the book.
Yeah, you would, but you learn. You become very personal with them. It seems like the characters grow in you, and after a while, I've created such a sense that you feel like you know them. You know, and you'll read a part in a book where you become very frustrated and very angry at them for what they're doing,
Sure.
And then you learn things and things that people aren't seeing. And in fact, there's one part there where the Monsignor who was assaulted says, he tells the prosecutor, you know, you listen but you didn't hear. And when the defense made its arguments, he made some valid points. But this was the 50s, and this was a church that was violated, and people turned a deaf ear to it, and the consequences that they paid was awesome for the mistake that they made. There were alternatives to this, but then again, we're talking about back in the 50s, and there was less understanding then.
Yes, yes. You described in page 3, when you described the torture of Monsignor Brown and Sister Mary at the hands of the five young men. That right there, when I first read that, man, that I had to stop on that. That was brutal.
It was, and you know, that's the part when you read, you become really angry, especially if you're a person of faith. You know, you don't want your church violated or the people that you look up to. But when you read it, and later on, even when the Monsignor's on his dying bed, he takes shared responsibility in what happened because of his failure. He realizes that on his dying bed. I don't want to give away the story because, and you've read it. And then later on, the years go by, you learn the real reason why they were there, and you become very sympathetic. Now, I'm telling you that, you know, here's somebody violates church, and you're going to tell me I'm going to become sympathetic. Read the book.
Yes.
Understand what drove these kids to this.
And this right here is something that we're really dealing with. You know what frightened me about it is that this is something that we're dealing with even today. The violence in a lot of the kids because of the X out where we have become so conservative and not, you know, putting our hands into what's really going on in society.
You bring up a very interesting point. You know, when you read this book about these 5 and everything they did, there's never any sense of hatred. And the Monsignor says that. I never saw the hatred. I saw the anger, but no hatred. You look today, it's different. It's more hatred than it is anger. I mean, you want to be angry at me for something, that's fine. Right. But to hate me is something else. And that's a different today, and it's more complex today. And the solutions aren't as easy.
See, it sounded to me, Church, that and the listening audience, that the Monsignor was real deep. Because to be able to look past the brutality that him and Sister Mary was put through, and to just, you know, to get deep and to get an understanding of where it came from, where the anger came from. Because most people today, you know, they're not going to pay that much attention. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't just wash their hands of it or whatever. But the Monsignor was real deep, and the way you described of his, even on his deathbed, that he felt the community, he felt the people. Without giving away the actual outcome, do you think, based on the Monsignor response to the torture, there could have been a different outcome?
Oh, yes, most definitely so. But this was the 50s, and I mentioned earlier, it was violation of something that was sacred. I don't think people understood the problems that existed then as much as they do today, or as more compassionate toward it. You know, I think back, if someone had just said to them, and did later on after the damage was done, you know, that, hey, wait a minute, I care what's going on. Nobody cared about them. Sure. Here they are, they existed on the streets, and nobody cared. Nobody lent a hand to them. That's why in the Monsignor's deathbed, he asked the character for forgiveness, that the character would forgive him.
Well, you know, in a way that's happening today too with a lot of the gangs that's coming, you know, into play. I'm sure you hear about it, that it's almost like it's forgotten people that's out there. Mm-hmm. You know, when you meet people, you know, I've been doing a lot of work here recently. Church, what's happening now with the foster care programs and bringing them in. In fact, Melissa, if you can go to a commercial at 15, she's not listening, but we talked to a lot of the people about foster parenting and things, and actually helping the community, being a helpmate to the community. It seemed to me that people have run away from that, and this character, and this is the thing that frightened me, Joe, about this book, about this here, is I believe that we are reinventing these same 5 characters in many, because we are not on the front line with them. We're not getting involved.
I'm not sure we know how. They don't listen. They are angry, and there are other things that come into play. These characters in the book didn't do anything bad. I mean, they went into the church to steal some money, but there was reason they wanted some money to get away. But today, they've got a taste of some big money, and whether they get involved with drugs or whatever it is, and that's a hard thing to break away. Tell someone, well, here you go work a job 9 to 5 and make a livable wage, opposed to having money just pouring in. How do you reach people like that? I don't know. Maybe it takes a professional to figure it out. I couldn't be able. And that problem didn't exist 40 or 50 years ago, not to the extent it does today.
And that's a valid point, because I often talk here on Harvest Radio that we have evolved to a level today that we're showing a level to our kids in terms of economics, that there's something different that they're going to have to do to keep their lifestyle going. Like all right, you take some parents today, we have kids living in $300,000-$400,000 houses, you see. And unless that kid go out here and get an education at work, how is he going to keep that? Where is he going to go after, mother and father shut their eyes or move down south or whatever it may be? What happens? Can if we don't take a deep look at what we're creating, what we're cultivating, we are standing a chance to lose. Because if you look at the evolution of society in America, we have never really lived like we're living today, in terms of so many middle class, so many working class people that's able to afford great houses and things of that nature. Like you take myself, I moved beyond my parents. You understand me? Mm-hmm. Now, I moved beyond my parents, So now we're seeing where the kids are not moving beyond their parents. And that brings a very confused and angry individual.
I think, that is probably the one thing that I think every parent would like to see, is that their children do better than them.
Yes.
Okay. And it should be that way.
It should be.
And in the 50s, we saw that a lot in the 50s. So the middle class moved up, and people like myself who grew up and my friends we grew up in the projects.
Sure.
In fact, that's the background of the book. Harlem is where I grew up. But I grew up in the projects, and there was 10 of us there were 10 of us that lived inside the 3 bedrooms. The 3-bedroom problem. Until today, I wonder. I think back.
10 of y'all live in a 3-bedroom.
Yeah,
apartment?
it was a project, 3 bedrooms. And I think back and I say, I can't remember what the sleeping arrangements were. My mom and dad had a bedroom. Where did everybody else sleep? Was somebody sleeping on the ceiling?
Right.
And funny thing about it is that when you've got 10 people living in an apartment, there's never any silence.
That's right.
So I think you go to church just to appreciate the silence.
Yes.
But even though you had that, those are the best memories of my life. I mean, today I've done fairly well for myself. I live fairly well. But my best memories are back then, because there was an ingredient back there.
There you go.
Okay? And maybe that's what's missing today. Maybe it was the family. I mean, we didn't have much. I mean, but it was still the best times of my life, and the most enjoyable times.
How do we, Joe, looking at this book here, and I tell you, I think this here book, Forever Brothers, is a must-read for everyone, because you take it from the 50s, but when I read it, I see this same story here, right now. And I think that was one reason why when you signed the book and gave it to me, went in the locker room, and I read it, I said, whoa, this is deep. This is deep. I froze on it, and I told you when I was going to the convention I would read it. And let me throw out a praise and a thank you to Andrea Keys for helping to help me understand and to help read the book with me, And she done her research and helped us put the thing together for today. So I want to say thank you, Andrea. The idea is this here: how do we create that same ingredient today?
Wow.
What can we do? That's the...
Yeah, I understand. But,
that hunger, Joe.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
You talked about, when you read the book, and I'm sure the first chapters grabbed you, you probably were very biased, and felt very angry and maybe disliked these characters.
Yes.
You know, go after these guys, bang them in the head with a bat, because that's what they deserve. But when you finished that book, you were very sympathetic.
Yes, yes.
Okay? And you said, wow, you know, did I have blinders on or something?
Yes,
Or what?
yes.
I didn't see this?
Yes.
I mean, the prosecutor, nobody saw it. The
saw
jury didn't see it. You know, the defense went through his motions. That was part of his tool. Whether he really saw it, I don't know. But the Monsignor saw it. But maybe that's what's missing today. You don't see it. We're not seeing it. Okay? I mean, we see the evil that goes on out there and the bad, and we write it off as just
Yes.
being bad.
That's
There's
right.
more to it than that.
That's right.
Just like these kids. It was missed. They missed the whole thing. The story in the end tells, and it gives you the feeling, I missed it. I share the responsibility, and you're willing to share that responsibility
Sure.
because the book told you basically what should have happened, and it didn't happen.
Exactly.
And so what these kids did was shared responsibility. Everybody was responsible for it.
Everybody, and so this is the same way we feel. You know, if you look at it today, Joe, and this right here is real. If you look at it today, it's the same thing, because something is triggering, you know, these kids to go in a house and shoot up the whole house. You know, the different stories you hear, or to behave in the way that they behave. It's something, because when I look at kids that was basically raised working middle class. And then when I talk to these kids, and I mean, a lot of them, I'm not going to say all, but a good many don't have that drive that's going to take it to the next level. I don't know where they're going to end up at. You understand? So, I mean, I related to a lot of this stuff that I read in the book here, you know.
Well, you know, a lot has to do with values. Values change. Even life. People value life even less. You know, to take someone's life for a few pennies or just out of anger, something's wrong. And this seed that's growing out there. But guys like you, Reverend, you're out there, you're in the front line, you're trying to resolve it.
I'm trying.
But it's hard for one person. You need an army to resolve it, okay? You need people. When I grew up, it was a little bit different. Today, most police, by let's call it the bad elements, they're pretty much hated by the police are pretty much hated. When I grew up, it wasn't that way. Cop walked this beat, you knew him,
Right.
and he talked to you. Yeah. And you know what? If he caught you doing something wrong, you might get a smack in the ass.
Yeah, right.
Well, swift kick. And you know what? The last thing you did was went to your old man and told your father you kicked it. Because you know what happened? You're going to get another kick.
That's right.
Because it was discipline. But today it doesn't exist. You don't have that today.
Yeah.
There's this dividing line between authority and
it's almost like us against them against us. And today you don't know who to believe, because you want to believe authority. You want to believe it, but then we have found that authority a lot of times are wrong. You want to believe them. You want to say, hey, this right here is what's happening. Hey, we believe you. I want to believe them. But then when you find out that it was this, it was that, oh my God. Now who do you believe?
You know what?
You understand where I'm coming from, Joe. I mean, if we're going to be real, we got to be real on this whole thing.
Maybe the problem is we just don't have enough role models.
We got to get some.
You know, where are the role models today? Even in sports, you like good role models. Back then, you had great people to look up to. Today, it seems to be, what can I get? What can I get today? You know, but you got to share it. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Was the reason why I wrote the book was not that I wanted to become an author or anything special. The background is something that I was familiar with. But I wanted to do something, okay? I don't have the talents that you have with people, Reverend. That's not my course in life. But I wanted to do something, and I wrote this book, and I told myself, hopefully it would sell, and that all the proceeds, 100%, would go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital for cancer research, and that's where it goes. So I try to do my little bit.
Sure.
But it's guys like you that are on the front line and in the street that can talk. I mean, I don't think I can talk to a kid. I probably